Hey guys, it's Mare. Now we're back in our gym today, and when we're in the gym, I know a lot of people talk about doing hip thrusts and wanting to build up our glutes, but you also hear this term glute bridge and hip thrust thrown around. So today we're gonna go over what the difference is and how you can incorporate both into your workouts. Let's go. So first, let's talk about our glute bridge. Now, our glute bridge, we're going to have our shoulders on the ground, which if you get under our bar down here, you're just gonna lay back. It's just where our shoulder position is. So we're gonna lay back, putting the bar onto our hips. The main muscles that our glute bridge is obviously our glutes, but it also incorporates some of our hamstrings, a little bit of quads, but we're really gonna try and focus on not emphasizing too much on our quads. That's kind of a mistake that happens, is we emphasize and use more of our quads. We really want to focus on our glutes. So what we're going to do is we are going to lay back. We're going to put this right on our hips right here. And we're just going to do exactly that. We're going to push straight up. And we're just going to keep our back nice and neutral, our spine in that neutral position. We don't need to arch. We don't need to do anything like that. And we're just going to push our hips straight up to the ceiling. So with our glute bridge, there's a couple different variations you can do with it. Obviously, I am doing it with a barbell. You could totally do it with a dumbbell. We can add in some tempos. We can add in some pauses, kind of making it a little bit more challenging. Our range of motion is a little bit limited since our back is flat on the ground. We actually don't have as much of range of motion. This is a great movement before you're gonna do your squats or any of your other compound lower body movements. Okay, so now we're gonna talk about a hip thrust. Now the real difference between a glute bridge and a hip thrust is just where our shoulder position is. So I'm going to use a machine today to be that example, but this raises up our shoulders off of the ground so we're more elevated and kind of like a square position. So we're gonna bring our shoulders up off the ground. We're gonna get a bigger range of motion. We're still gonna be activating our glutes and our hamstrings and part of our lower back. Again, really focusing on our glutes. So when we were in our glute bridge, we had our shoulders down on the ground. This is bringing our shoulders, elevating it up so we can get a bigger range of motion as we are able to go down. Just more glute activation. Now for our hip thrust, we can also add some variety into it. We can add some pauses, we can add some tempos. We could switch up our equipment. I obviously am using a machine. We could use a barbell with a bench. We can use a dumbbell, we could do single leg. There's a bunch of things you could do with our hip thrust. Now, with our hip thrust, you're able to progress a little bit more and have our progressive overload. We're able to load it a little bit more. We're able to grow our glutes. We're able to get that bigger range of motion to be able to activate more of our glutes for that better glute growth. So now the main key differences between a glute bridge and a hip thrust. We have our range of motion. In our glute bridge, we have a very limited range of motion. We're not able to kind of get as deep and incorporate our glutes as much as we would when we are in our hip thrust. In our hip thrust, we're able to have more glute activation because of that range of motion. The equipment needed. In a glute bridge, you don't necessarily need a ton of equipment. You can use a dumbbell, you can use something simple in order to accomplish that. For our hip thrust, you do need to be able to elevate your shoulders. So you need to find either a bench or a box or a machine. It kind of requires a little bit more to accomplish. We both target the glutes. Hip thrusts allow for more direct and intense glute engagement due to the deeper hip flexion and load. Hip thrusts generally allowed for progressive overload, which means you're able to add more weight. You're able to add more weight easily to be able to do a higher weight. Whereas for a glute bridge, it's mostly just for light resistance, a little bit more warm-up-y. I think if you start with a glute bridge, you should move and try to get into a hip thrust so that you can do progressive overload from there. When are we gonna use our glute bridge versus our hip thrust? Now, our glute bridge is perfect for our warm-ups. We don't really have a ton of range of motion, but it's enough to get kind of some glute activation before we do some of our big heavy squats, right? Now, this is also really great for beginners, people who don't really have a lot of range of motion or mobility. So kind of give them some activation without hurting their hips if they have some limited mobility in their hips. And what's really great about our glute bridges here is it really doesn't require a lot. I'm using a dumbbell now. We could have used a barbell. We don't even have to have any weight at all. This will just still give us some nice glute activation. Really great to incorporate. And that's it for the difference between a glute bridge and our hip thrust. Now, which one should you incorporate? You should incorporate both. Our glute bridge is really great for our warm-ups before we are doing any of our compound lifts, and our hip thrust will really help activate those glutes to be able to get them to grow. Now, get out there. Thanks to Fit Club for letting me come into the gym today and to get my workout in. Hit that subscribe button and get out there and get lifting.